Thank you for joining us on the program, for staying with us on the program this morning on Business Daily. So before the break, I said we're looking at the Pegasus situation, the strike, and its impact. And of course, we're going to look at the president's speech, the economic part of the speech. In case you've seen the full transcript, that will be from point 7 to 12. That's where the president made some speeches about the economy. Now, joining me in the studio to further discuss this is one of our staples. I get to have him for the first time in-house, in studio, Dr. Emmanuel Bashayi. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
It's a pleasure being here once again.
Yes. Now, let's look at the Pegasus situation. Let's start off from there. First of all, I think good news that they've called off the strike. I want to believe so, but I'm going to look at some of the things that came out from just that, if I believe it's a day or so. It wasn't even up to the 48-hour strike. Now, there was about a loss in earnings. Even NNPC had come out to say, that's Bayo Ojulari, has come out to say that that strike has cost the nation something, albeit short term, or it did. Now, there's power supply. The national grid dropped from 4,300 megawatts to 3,200 megawatts due to gas shortages. Industries, gas-dependent firms, cement, glass manufacturing faced a shutdown risk. Refined products, of course, Dangote Refinery was going to be there at the brunt of this, really. Fiscal and FX pressure, decline in oil and gas revenues, hits government income and naira stability. Inflation, energy shortages push up production and consumer costs. Now, of course, if that strike had elongated investor confidence. Prior to this, while all that whole story was going on and that back and forth, a video surfaced, an old video of our very former and very benevolent former Commander-in-Chief General Sani Abacha. Right, yeah. I say benevolent because we keep getting some money back from him. So now, where he at that time was dissolved. That was the theme of that whole video, yeah. Pegasus and Nupeng. And of course, people were saying there were bottlenecks. Now, my question is that the case here? Do you think that Pegasus and Nupeng are acting as bottlenecks again?
All right, so these are unions, trade unions, and their objective is to put forward a common front to protect their members and then ensure that the welfare of their members is adequately taken care of and things go as expected. Now, sometimes there could be some conflict between getting things working and the welfare of their members. So when one comes in the way of the other, it becomes a bit of a challenge to resolve, right? Sometimes those actions can result in disruption of business, disruption of their activities. So when they down tools, it means there'll be no oil exploration. When there's no oil exploration, it means that government will not get FX revenue because our biggest ever FX energy stream is oil. So the ripple effect goes across so many sectors. And when there's a shortage in FX supply, the importer gets less. The pressure on the FX begins to go high because there's now less supply and a constant demand, right? So it's because of what their actions can result to that they become such a powerful force. Now, but be that as it may, with every power comes responsibility, right? So if you are that powerful, sometimes the only way government responds is when they wield their power. We touch the government where it matters, then government responds like, how far, let's talk, right? So sometimes it's difficult to draw the line between where you should stop and where you should continue, especially when national security is involved, because power is involved. The economy is involved and everything is involved. So when you juxtapose it versus the old video of the late General Sani Abacha, it gets to a point where government can get to the neck and say, you know what, guys, we need to shut this thing down. Let's face it squarely. And remember, it was a military dictatorship. So there was no time for diplomacy, no time to dilly-dally around, no time to negotiate. You don't play ball, we kick you out. That kind of thing. So this is where that comes in. And I'm glad that they were able to listen to voice of reason as quickly as possible and then call off the strike at the time they did. I think it's more important to look into the meat of the issue, what is causing this. Instead of throwing the whole country into chaos, let's deal with the issues. Let's be topical about the conversation. Pick it one streak at a time and then deal with it. I think that will be more effective. It will be more effective in the long run for us as a country. But do they have a right to voice out their concerns? Of course they do. The union exists to protect its members and protect the commonwealth of the membership. So the union will have to use whatever tools and resources at their disposal to make their demands known.
Okay, so I'm going to hop on to something you've said. The fact that, unionism, especially this particular one, wields quite a lot of power. And we can see the effect of their power because the whole country was about to just go on a pause and stand still for a bit. Doesn't that in effect sell the idea or, help to sell the fact what Dangote is saying, I don't want this because if this were to happen, this might affect my business. And doesn't that equally, in a way, I get unions are great. It's a good thing to have it, but doesn't it show the fact that unionism in itself could be a problem to the economy of a nation? I get that workers should be protected. Very, very important. But where do we strike that balance where it doesn't become a problem?
So, Dangote has a private business, right? And the thing is that his employees are members of this union. And I can give a background. Dangote refinery barely started a few years ago. What that means is that he had to hire experienced hands.
Okay.
And these experienced hands were going to come from the industry, meaning that they were possibly members of Pengassan or the unions before they came into his employment. Now, they will want to retain their membership. But I also know that in the contracts being signed, I don't know the details of their contract, I know of some multinational companies that will say they don't accept trade unionism. So it's clearly called out in the contract. If you're okay with it, sign. If you're not okay with it, sorry. This is our own principle. I mean, I know of multinational companies in Nigeria that don't accept trade union. It's clearly called out in the contract document. So if you accepted the contract and you signed, it means you signed off the right to be a part of any union because that was the basis upon which you accepted the contract. So I don't know what the details are, but if there is such a clause that says, hey, we don't accept unionism within our organization, it's clearly within the right of the employer to say, I don't. All right? And if you want to work for me, these are my terms. If you're okay with it, let's play ball. So I don't know what that is, but if by chance there were other members of Pengassan who were existing members before they joined the employment of Dangote, then you will also understand the reason why they are having the agitation to want to perpetuate their membership even while they are on the employment of Dangote. But I'm not an expert in that, so please don't take my word for it, but I'm just trying to think about possible scenarios. So now that the conversation is around membership of Pengassan and how we want our rights to be protected now that we work here, and there's a conflict between the organization they now work for and their membership of the union, then it's a conversation that we'll sit down and look at both the legal angle, because I'm sure that the legal team of Dangote will have looked at the ramifications before taking the actions that they're taking to know whether they are protected by law or not. Right? Because if I have a valid contract with an employee and he's agreed to the terms and then he's coming back to, that means he wants us to review the terms of the contract. And if we have not reviewed those terms, it means he cannot start taking rash actions because there's a valid document. And so if I say you're going against our agreement and you need to go out, I wouldn't be wrong in that space. So I think it's important that Pengassan isolates the issue. Let's deal with the Dangote issue and the membership of Pengassan within the Dangote organization. And then let's try as much as possible to escalate it to affect the whole of Nigeria, because we are grieving in one side that affects a small microcosm, and then we want to escalate across the whole country because all of us get the brunt.
Okay, so now we've seen what happened and the impact and the shock it gave to us as a nation, as a country. Now, what buffers do you think could have helped us cushion this? Peradventure, this had taken longer than it did actually.
Dialogue is key. We need to talk. When there are issues on the table, we need to bring the stakeholders to the table and have a conversation on time. Let's not get to the point where people begin to flex their muscles before we start intervening on issues, right? So if there's a potential issue that can escalate to this point, let's nip it in the bud before it gets there. So I would have expected a longer time given for dialogue so that every voice is heard and every grieving party is properly allowed to grieve and vent, right? And at the end of the day, there'll always be a solution if we come with we'll come with good faith that we're going to face this issue on the basis of the fact that we want to come up with a solution and not just create chaos or this thing there. I mean, think about it. If the union get what it wants all the time and it's at the detriment of the entire nation, how does that make sense? Okay, so it needs to be a balance that the union exists to serve Nigeria and not to be a disservice to the country. And let it not be that you're just the symbol of bad news anytime you come into the space. It's not about painting someone bad and painting someone good. Right now, I cannot tell you that I know the details of the ramification of the fight, right? But I'm only saying that for the sake of Nigeria, let's see how we can amicably resolve issues on time so that the Nigerians don't go under a knife sharper than what they're already under. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so now, while we were reading our top stories, we talked about the TUC President Festus Sifo talking about that they are not, although they've agreed to call off this strike out of patriotism and, listen to the persuasion of the government, they're still not happy with some of the aspects of the communique. Should we expect some sort of, looking ahead? Because we're seeing that this has a serious effect on the economy. And you're telling me that these people wield quite a lot of power, really quite a lot of power. So if they're seemingly not very, as you said, not grooved properly, not vented, not, had their needs met appropriately, are we looking to see another situation up in front from them again?
Of course, if the issues are not well resolved and properly handled, you should expect that. I mean, even when you have a conflict with a child in the house, if you don't resolve it properly, expect it to resurface because when wounds are left open, infection can enter, things can go wrong. So you want to make sure that you are able to properly close the lid. If there's an issue, we properly deal with it and we'll have a closure on it.
Okay, so I'm going to pause there a bit. The government now has an insight with the statements from Festus Sifo that we're not necessarily happy with this. We are going to, we're just, having to toe the line and, get on board. What can the government do to prevent this thing happening again? To prevent us having this situation of having economic shocks, down tools, power grids failing? What can the government do to see that it doesn't happen again?
Engage on time. Whenever there are indications of conflicts within parties that can cause a national issue, government should step in on time. Government might not act as an arbiter, but government is a stakeholder, a critical stakeholder at that, because both the employer and the employee, who are the members of the union, both work to serve Nigeria. And the president and commander-in-chief takes the bullet when Nigerians are not served properly, right? So it is important that the government functionaries that are responsible for such interventions come in on time. Hey guys, what's going on? Let's see. Let's have a round table. Let's have a conversation. Lock yourselves up in a room and say, we're not leaving here until we find a solution to this problem. And if we truly want to find a solution, we'll find a solution. I know they're very smart people. They're very, very intelligent people. So finding a solution will not be their problem if there is goodwill and there is the good faith to want to find it. So my recommendation is that let's not be reactive with this kind of things. We should be proactive enough that before it escalates, let's find a solution. If we need to get everybody locked up in a room, let's find a solution. Let's go. I mean, when I mean locked up in a room, in a very good way, let's say, hey, we're coming here to find a common ground.
And until we do,
we are not living here. So let's put on our thinking caps. Let's come with all the intelligence and all the armory of what we have in our brains and make sure we deal with this once and for all so that the country doesn't suffer the impact of our actions.
Basically, what we're saying is everybody should realize that Nigeria is the main factor
Nigeria
here.
first.
Yes, Nigeria first. That whole philosophy should equally imbibe in the decisions that we take.
Absolutely.
Now, let's move over to another thing. Yesterday was our Independence Day, and as usual, our president gave a speech. Now, the economic part of it is what concerns us on Business Daily this morning, and we're going to be looking at that part of the speech. Now, that is from the 7th to the 12th. However, there are 12 key economic things that the president pointed out. That is from number 12 of this full transcript of that speech. Now, the 12 major economic milestones is the oil revenue surge to 20 trillion naira by August 2025, 3.65 trillion naira raised in September alone. We'll put it on the screen for you to see in a short while. Fiscal health restored, debt service to revenue ratio cut from 97% to less than 50%, subsidy removal freed trillions, stronger reserves 42.03 billion naira, highest since 2019. Tax to GDP ratio up to 13.5%. New tax law, of course, is coming in January 2026. We'll look into that in the course of as the year goes. We'll look into it now. Trade surplus, 5 consecutive quarters, 7.46 trillion naira in quarter 2 2025. Non-oil exports, 48% of exports. Oil sector revival, output of 1.68 million barrels per day. Local PMS refining for the first time, of course, the Dangote refinery in 40 years. And now we've become a lead exporter of aviation fuel in Africa. Naira stabilization, FX market unified, arbitrage reduced, less tied to crude oil prices. Social investment, 330 billion naira disbursed to 8 million poor households. Solid minerals, coal mining rebounded. Soil minerals, key growth driver. Transport infrastructure, railroad and port expansion underway. That's the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, the Kano-Katsina Maradi Rail, the Eastern Rail Project. And the global recognition are credit ratings improved, our stock market index up from 25,000%, and monetary confidence, of course, CBN cut interest rates first in 5 years. I'm going to start with the last one. I'm going to tie it over to what's happening in Ghana. Ghana, the CBN president and of course the monetary guy, the statistician, said that the reason why the inflation happened in the full script of that story is due to the cut rate. Now here in Nigeria, are we looking, or are we hopeful to see that the fact that we've cut rate would in a way impact the inflation numbers and bring it down?
That's the expectation. Rate cuts would create greater stimulation in the real sector, meaning that the cost of borrowing will go down. And when that happens, it means that more organizations, more companies are able to get more money to run their working capital and also capital expenditures, their capex and their opex. So it's expected that that should drive down inflation going forward, because think about it. The textbook explanation, the textbook recommendation is that when there is high inflationary pressure, you jack up rates, meaning that you make borrowing unattractive so that people don't have to borrow and spend lavishly. They only borrow when they need it and all of that because the rates are high. So, but now that you've attained some level of equilibrium and then there is a downward trend, meaning that you've peaked. I mean, remember the law of diminishing return. When you get to the peak, you begin to go down. So we expect that that days are behind us and the inflation numbers should be going in the downward direction. Now that it's turning downwards, it's to find a way of fueling the pace at which it continues to go down the steep slope. I mean, Ghana is a classical story. Coming to 9.4%, they hit 40-something% at some point. Sometimes in 2023, 2022, the inflation rate was very rife. And so if they're able to get it down to single digit below 10%, it means there's something to copy from there. So this is time to begin to scoop the gains of the tightening measures that have happened. all right? Because we have continued to go up in the last 5 years, or at worst maintain. Now it's time to reap the gains of all that we've done. My expectation is that the rate should go down. It might. I wouldn't want it to go down very steep rates. Maybe you move from 27% or going down to 20% or something.
Isn't that a good move?
Well, so such policies take time to mature.
Okay.
And if they are wrong, it takes time to also correct. So you also want to be careful.
Okay.
Right? So trust me, the CBN is not going to go also. I mean, though sometimes when you want to die, it's better die at once. But
okay, you're talking about the CBN cutting the rate down from 20-something
yes,
to...
okay. I don't expect it to be that steep.
Okay.
I mean, it will be...
I thought you meant the inflation rate going that drastically
no.
down. Okay.
These things don't work that way in real life. It's not like an action film, right? So this thing takes time, and it will take concerted efforts to continue to drive it down, and you're monitoring the pulse. You know when to say, hold on. You know when to say, let's keep going, right? So it's very important. But a rate cut going forward in the next couple of, at least in the next 4 to 5 quarters, should be highly recommended. In the first instance, it might be like staying same, then you now go down, and then you maintain, and then keep going
Okay,
down.
so maybe maintain, go down, maintain, go down, maintain. So now, one of the other highlights of that speech was the president said something very key. We did certain reforms, which is, of course, the fuel subsidy removal, the FX unification for long-term benefits, however, short-term pain.
Yeah.
Now, the question is this. Have the long-term benefits, we're still looking, I guess we're still on the short-term pain part of the conversation. Have the long-term benefits actually, so far, from what we're seeing, is it seemingly going to outweigh these pangs and pains that the Nigerians are facing at the moment?
So it depends on how you look at it. It was very clear that the first subsidy regime was not very clear. Okay. It was very muddy, very shady. And then it was widely believed that it was a conduit for massive corruption. So it was clear to everybody that something needed to happen to it. Whether it was going to go or it was going to be properly overhauled, something needed to happen to it. And President Tinubu chose the other route. Let's take it out completely. Do I completely agree with that? No. Because I know that every major country in the world has some level of subsidy. Energy subsidy especially. So you know how the entire economic dynamics change because of that single policy. So, but you cannot die twice, right? We've died once, except if we decide to go back to the days of first subsidy again and reinvent and bring back that level of corruption. That would then be a separate kettle of fish entirely. But let's assume we have died this death once. The expectation is that all the money that we have been channeling into first subsidy needs to be channeled into something productive that benefits the generality of us. It was one thing that was clear. One thing that is clear is the fact that fuel subsidy benefited us. Everybody benefited from it because everybody used one form of fuel, or the other to do their daily activities. So now that you've taken this thing that was clearly a benefit to all, what are you replacing it with that will be of benefit to us? Because the money is going to go somewhere. Now today, the governors are getting more money, the subnationals are getting more money. So the question would then be, is this money trickling down in terms of benefits to the generality of us? Are we seeing better infrastructure? Are we seeing better hospitals? Are we seeing better education at those levels? That is what the money should be channeled into, because if we're being paid in one side, we should get a gain on the other side, right? So that is the part that is still a bit not very clear to many Nigerians. After the first subsidy, what next? What next? Because the general perception is that the most of this money is being siphoned into private pockets. Think about it. When it's almost month end, just take a monitor, just take a look. That's when the exchange rate, especially the parallel market, goes up. Now there's a higher demand for dollars because these guys have gotten federal government allocation now. They need to convert it into dollars. So the demand pressure goes higher. So the exchange rate goes higher. So these are trends that we see every day.
Just saying this is what's the trend now that's happening now since the first of the removal.
Typically, go towards month end, it goes higher. Beginning of the month, it goes again down. Then it keeps going, and then once you get in towards the end of the month again, money is going to come from federal government, it goes high again because everything has been dollarized. These guys collect this money in naira, change it to dollars. They spend dollars now, they don't spend naira anymore. It's too much luggage, right? So these things need to have some level of accountability. We need to hold our leaders accountable. You now make more money, you now get more money from the federal government. What do you do with it? How is this affecting us? Our livelihood as a collective? These are the kind of conversation we should be having because it's very clear. I mean, it's not hidden that state governments get more money now.
Okay, so this is things like salaries being owed should be a thing of the past. It should be a
thing of the past. I mean, if there's any state owing salaries now, they should they should cover their faces in shame.
The issue of minimum wage is still there. Some states, I think about 19 or so, haven't implemented even, I think the 30,000 naira was a big problem. I think they were still yet to get them to implement that. So with this, what you're saying now, the belief is that they should be able to meet up with this, new minimum wage. That's the belief.
Yeah. So you see, the general consensus most of the time is that we look at just the federal government as the problem.
Yes.
I think the thing has shifted now from the federal government to the state governments. I mean,
and that's the local government. Now
the local governments and the state government. While it is very convenient to blame the president, now it's time to beam the searchlight on the governors and the local government chairmen. Because you clearly get more money today. I mean, when President Buhari was in power, I can't remember a time they shared 1 trillion naira in a month, federal allocation. I can't remember in fact sharing 1 trillion naira. Now they're balling. These guys are chilling.
I understand you. Yes, they might be sharing 1 trillion naira, but let's look at it. With inflation, does it really amount to more money?
Yeah, it will amount to, okay, with inflation, it might not amount to more money, in quotes, but it levels out.
Okay.
The quantum of money levels it out in dollar terms to a good extent. Because there are some states that are getting 2x, 3x what they used to get before. So, inflation, the exchange rate, give or take, you talk dollar, naira devaluation wouldn't be up to 3 times or 4 times. If you're getting 4 times, you're definitely above the inflation. So this is the point. The point now is our leaders are the subnationals. We need to beam the searchlight on them now. That is not to take away our attention from the federal government for sure, but these guys make more money, get more money now. I don't want to use the word make more money. They get more money now. They have a higher responsibility to ensure that these monies translate into the betterment of the life of the people.
Okay, I'd like to also look at number 2 on that list of 12 economic impacts. Now, number 2 there is saying that fiscal health restored, our debt to service ratio cut from 97 to 50%. Now, the question is, can we really say that our fiscal health is getting better with those numbers? So
it's a positive sign. Our debt to revenue to debt service ratio was around 97%. What that meant was that if you're making 100 naira, you were using 97 naira to service debts. So now it's 50% or even less, which is a good thing. Now, these things don't translate very quickly, which is a problem with economic things. When they happen, it takes time for the real impact to be seen. Sometimes destroying them happens very quickly, but building them back up takes time. So
I guess said that yesterday on the
exactly. So what has happened is government has evolved more ways. So think about the notable things that have happened. Oil output is now 1.68 million barrels per day. We're doing, at some point we did less than 1 million. So we're already increasing oil output. That means more cash, more FX coming in. Yes. Then government has become a lot more efficient with taxation now, right? FIRA is exceeding target in August. a full year target has been exceeded in August
already. Yeah.
The custom service and all the other revenue generating agents are full blast. So government is getting in more money. It's squeezing out more juice from the already existing orange, right? So it means more money coming in, more ways of getting money. So money from crude oil exploration, money from the tax agencies and all of those. So it has made more money available to government to be able to service debts. And this is why we are seeing this. So in terms of the fiscal outlook, this is a good thing. But for the guy on the street, it might not make any difference yet, because these things are better looked on paper than they are on the ground or in the reality of things. It will take time. So now that government is not spending so much of its revenue servicing debts anymore, it means that the 50% can be used into more productive ventures to begin to show the progress that we are looking for. Think about it. During the Great Recession in the US, back in the years, I can't remember the year now, one of the things that government did was, instead of handing out money to people, government decided to go into massive infrastructure. Most of the roads in the US, they were built during those times. So government believed that if we're able to build infrastructure, the money we're pumping into the building of infrastructure can stimulate the economy better. So the artisan will get some money, the dependents on him, the welder, the mason, the laborer. So everybody is going to be gainfully employed, even the food vendor. So everybody is in some way participating. So when you go to the market, the food vendor will go to the market to buy stuff. So that stimulated the economy and got them out of that recession. So it's one sure way. When you put a lot of money into infrastructure, especially infrastructure that are very close to the people and affect their livelihoods very well, it stimulates the economy even faster than you think. And I think this is the part where the government will make that choice, that now that we're freed up good part of our revenue, let's invest into the things that can stimulate the economy more faster.
Okay, I would have gone into the GDP ratio of the conversation, but time is not on our side and we need to wrap up so that other things can happen. Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel Bashayi, for joining us on the program this morning.
The pleasure is always
sharing your insights and telling us how best to make these things work for us. And we've been talking about the Pegasus strike's impact on the economy. We saw it actually had quite a great impact, and of course the president's speech realized some parts of it, looking at what they mean for us and how we can expect better in the coming years. My name is Chiamaka Nwafor. For more of our programs, news and documentaries, do watch us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. Same time, same place tomorrow. Bye for now.